Joining me now is Andrew Williams, President and CEO at New Pacific Metals. Great to see you, Andrew.
Hey, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
And we are talking at a very opportune time because the pre-feasibility study is out for silver sand. You're going to dig into the numbers for us in just a second. I don't want to bury the lead, but for those who may not be that familiar, can you give us just a brief overview of silver sand in Bolivia, the flagship asset?
Yeah, so silver sand is the project that brought us to Bolivia in the first place in 2017, one that we drilled from 2017 to 2022 and unearthed one of the biggest and best precious metals discoveries that's been made anywhere on the planet in this past decade. And in January of 2023, we put out our PEA study, and we've been working diligently over the last year and a half to put together this pre-feasibility study, which we just released yesterday.
Right. Very exciting. You call this a milestone for the company. Let's dig into these numbers now. The PFS on silver sand. Among the highlights, you've got a post-tax net present value of 740 million US, internal rate of return of 37%, and then you estimate 157 million ounces of silver. So overall, what's the significance of this milestone and the message it sends to the market? And as you take us through some of these highlights.
Yeah, I think one of the key takeaways is you just think about discoveries that are made in our industry, and as they get beaten down with the rigors of different engineers and accountants and the like, you tend to see the economics degrade quite significantly. But that certainly wasn't the case in the instance of silver sand, which I think as we continue to throw more engineering rigor at it, the deposit continues to be robust, and it certainly withstood the additional rigor that went into the pre-feasibility study. So I think having a strong result like we put out really solidifies silver sand as being one of the best, if not the best, undeveloped precious metals deposits anywhere in the world.
And Andrew, would you say that the numbers are not just the same, but probably better than the PEA?
Well, certainly we got a slight tailwind from the positive silver macroeconomic backdrop. So compared to our PEA study, which was done at a $22.50 silver price, our PFS was done at a $24 silver price. And really, at the end of the day, the silver price is the most important variable that goes into it. So we certainly got a lift, but I will also flag that we've been kind of touching and eclipsing $30 silver for quite a while, but we made the decision to keep our pricing relatively conservative relative to where the spot prices are today. But certainly that's another piece that showcases well is the leverage that our silver sand project has to this strong silver price environment that we find ourselves in today.
All right, Andrew, so the PFS is out. Can you take investors through some of the next catalysts for the rest of the year and into 25? What are the next steps to expect?
Well, for our silver sand project, our focus is now going to be on advancing our environmental permitting. As well, we've got some additional land adjacent to our 100% owned claims that is owned by a state-owned mining company, Ball, that we're working towards ratifying. So we're going to make good headway on those two important fronts next for our silver sand project, whereas our engineering team are going to focus more intensely now on our second major project, Carangas, which we're working towards publishing a preliminary economic assessment by September of this year.
Right, and Carangas is this fairly new polymetallic discovery that the team has made, and you say that the value of Carangas is just not being recognized in the share price. We did see the stock pop on the PFS yesterday for silver sand, but what are the highlights of Carangas, and what are the markets what are investors not quite seeing just yet?
Yeah, so I think again, it was once a discovery and then a resource, and we've yet to really put firm economics on the project that really make the value proposition a lot more transparent. And so I think that's really what we're after here over the next few months with the Carangas project. And Carangas, when we put the resource out, we went for maximum tonnage, maximum metal, and showcased a system with a huge amount of metal in it, right? Over 3 times the metal, 5 times the tonnage of our silver sand project. But what we're doing with the PEA study is focusing on the most high impact, high margin developable portion of that large resource, and trying to put something together that would be more of the scale to the silver sand project. And I think the fact that Carangas is not just this homogeneous blob of mineralization, but there's some really nice discrete high grade pockets in the system that fortunately for us are close to surface and mineable by low cost open pit mining methods, that's the portion and the part of Carangas that we think will really surprise folks when we put out our PEA study later this year.
And not to put too fine a point on it, but when you say later this year, can you narrow that down? Or is
yeah, we're thinking it's probably September timeframe. We've committed to Q3, and so imagine it'll come near the back end of the quarter, so probably sometime in and around September.
All right, very good. Now let's look at Bolivia itself, and I'd be remiss if I didn't preface this question by asking about the attempted coup yesterday, I guess it was, that was squashed by the government. Any impact on your operations, or how would you characterize it?
No, and thanks for asking the question. I mean, obviously, it's top of mind, being in the news headlines. But when it kicked off, our first order of business was safety and making sure that all our people and our property are safe, and we were able to accomplish that. It wasn't a particularly significant feat, as you mentioned. It sort of fizzled after a couple of hours. The events died down, and it seems like law and order have been restored, and business will continue to go on. So as far as our operations go, and what our core business is advancing our projects on the ground and up here in Vancouver with the engineering work and the interface between the two. There really have been no disruptions whatsoever to our business. So we're just very fortunate that everyone is safe, and the situation seems to have resolved itself in fairly short order.
Having said that, Bolivia does have a long history of mining culture. What would you say are some of the key factors that make it an attractive place to do business?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, the geology, right? I mean, geology is the core of everything the mining industry does, and Bolivia's got it in spades. The largest silver deposit in the history of the world, Cerro Rico, just 40 kilometers from our silver sand project, I think is a testament to that geology. And then there are great countries with great geology that never turn to be mining jurisdictions, and there's certainly that cultural element of it, and that's the second piece that Bolivia has, is because they've been mining for 500 years. There's 3 wonderful large-scale industrial silver mining operations going on in the country that have been successfully running for the last 15, 20 years. So Bolivia certainly has the geology. It certainly has the mining culture. There's some wonderful talent. I think that's one of the most rewarding parts of this job, is just building this team that we've curated in Bolivia with a lot of folks that have very good knowledge of the mining sector and the permitting regime and what it takes to be successful. So I think when you combine great geology and good mining culture and good people, that's really the secret to why we're so excited to call Bolivia our home and advance our projects there.
Now, on the financial front, the company raised $35 million last September. You've got Silvercorp and Pan American continuing to be key shareholders. So 2-part question: are you still nicely cashed up? And what's the significance of having 2 heavyweights, so to speak, in the silver sector in your corner like that as part of the shareholder base?
Yeah, so no, thanks for pointing that out. Yeah, we certainly have these 2 strong backers. Our cash position is still robust. I think we're north of 20 million US, which gives us plenty of runway for what we've got left to do here. And both Silvercorp, Pan American Silver, very supportive shareholders. They've got representation on our board as part of our, to give you an anecdotal example, as part of our pre-feasibility exercise, we got some really good technical support from the operators, having a treasure trove of data of real-time operational costs in certain areas that gave us a lot more insight and refinement into some of the numbers that we put out for the pre-feasibility study, a benefit that we wouldn't otherwise have if it were not for the support of these shareholders. So yeah, from both a balance sheet perspective and an intellectual horsepower perspective, I think having both those companies on our register is a major strategic advantage for us as a junior in this market.
Lastly here, Andrew, you mentioned the silver price flirting with $30 US for quite a while now. So that's a nice backdrop. So can you summarize, with the PFS out now for silver sand, the PEA coming for Carangas, and the other catalysts you mentioned, can you summarize the investment case for New Pacific against the backdrop of a pretty solid and tailwinds for silver?
Yeah, I think if you just look at just our silver sand project and you ignore everything else that we've got in our company, which would be a ludicrous assumption, but if you just focus on the silver sand project, at $30 silver, we included a sensitivity analysis in our press release. So the silver sand project NAV is over $1 billion. And so there's a huge runway to go here as we advance the project further. I think discoveries get all the attention in our industry because they're sexy, they're exciting, but I'd argue, and the data is there to support it, that a disciplined project advancement and project development is really the unsung hero of value creation in our industry. And so certainly we've got a big long runway just with our silver sand project as we continue to advance it further to crystallize that value and drive it back into our share price for our shareholders. And never mind, on top of that, we've got our Carangas project, which is coming out with its PEA study in September, focusing on this nearer surface, higher grade scenario. And again, will daylight some significant value that we've got on the table for our shareholders that we will continue to advance. So, two wonderful projects, some of the best in the industry that have yet to be developed, in a very strong backdrop. I think it's a really opportune time here for investors in our company.
Thanks for the update, Andrew. We'll catch you down the road. We appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Andrew Williams, President and CEO at New Pacific Metals. Thanks a lot for watching. We'll talk to you next time.